Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June 28th Board of Directors meeting. Thank you for coming tonight. Yes, thank you, AJ, too, for popping in there. That works. We're just on time. We will go ahead and call to order at 6:36 and go ahead and get started. I will let you know in advance that I do not have the skill set that Kristen has with taking notes. So bear with me and be patient. That is not a role that you ever want to nominate me for. But I will be working and doing my best tonight. So let me know if I skip anything or miss anything. So tonight we have, we'll offer public comment to see if we have any of those from the chat box tonight to open up. We'll approve the prior board minutes, have the principals report, a finance report. I don't see Marnie in here yet, but I'll give her, she might pop in. If she's here later, we'll do a PTO, couple of board reminders and a couple of votes on board before the lovely president's update. So I will go ahead and open up for any public input or comments. Go ahead and you should be able to access the chat box and see if I'll take a minute and see if we have any comments.
Christine Cologne. It looks like you're driving and maybe have your camera on, but we're getting some weird video from you. You may want to just turn your camera off. All right.
All right. Looks like Amy did. I'll just go ahead and read it out loud. Since we have 2 site locations, will we have 2 police officers and resource officers?
Yeah.
Patrice, we may address that during our school safety assurances thing, right?
Yep.
Perfect. Sorry, I just muted you, Christine. I apologize. Just there was some background feedback. Yeah, no worries, Amy. Thank you. A great question. All right. And any other public comments that want to be shared?
Doesn't look like we have too many public.
No, I don't think so either.
Board and admin here tonight, so.
Yeah, no worries. All right, I have added that.
Summer.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to approving prior minutes. We have a couple of them that we are going to need to approve. The first one is the May 17th board meeting minutes. And then the second one is the May 19th and the 27th board meeting minutes. So we actually have 3 separate meeting notes that we need to approve. So we can do that as 2 separate actions.
I'm willing to make a motion to approve the May 17th board meeting minutes as submitted. I was not in attendance in the other meeting, so I'll defer from that one, but I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes for the May 17th board meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Perfect.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? No. All right. You guys were without me on that emergency meeting in the end of May, so I'll refrain from that. But if anybody else has reviewed and wants to make a motion to approve those, happy to entertain that.
I'll move to approve the minutes from May 19th and May 27th meetings.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion second from AJ. Any feedback? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? All right.
Perfect.
Procedural business accomplished. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. And then we have another vote that is to extend Brett Casey's term 3 years for a max of 9 years in 2025. Sounds like a sentence the way that's written. And then to extend Stacey Williams' term 3 years.
Do we need to do those tonight?
I think that we are up is why they were on there, but
We have a board meeting coming up in a couple weeks. I just think part of our topic will be around just some succession planning things. So I don't know if we want to,
okay.
if it's possible, Kevin, I'll look to you for some legal advice. Meeting in a couple weeks, could we table those for a couple? Not that if we extend those today, that it really prevents anything else from happening, but I would just like to be able to have a kind of strategic conversation and vote for those at that time. We're going to get ourselves out of compliance. If we are, then we can just extend them.
No, I think you'll be okay. We'll maybe just do those at the beginning of the meeting so that we ensure there's no gap.
Yeah, and I was just because my question is going to be, I mean, we've done these in 3-year increments. I mean, I'm assuming we can continue to do that, or should, can we do them in 1 or other year increments? Ultimately, people have the pleasure of serving as, there's nothing, people aren't committed to anything beyond today at this point. So extending it doesn't hurt anything, but I don't know. Just thought it'd be good to have a bigger picture conversation.
I mean, our meeting's on the 12th, so that's only in 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
I think your comment's well placed, Brett, right? You're like, you're not ready to leave today, but you're not sure you want to commit to 3 years, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, look, so it's to be a total of 9 years. And it's not that I'm not willing to take an extension of that length, knowing you can really depart as whenever you want, but I'd rather just set us up. I want to have a longer term bigger picture conversation, and we can go from there.
Well, and is that maybe where we would even look to have an additional board member added to, because
Yeah.
the board at this point, is that something where maybe we need to reach out and start advertising on an additional board member?
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be part of the conversation we want to have to strategically. Ideally, we need to get to a 7th person on the board to keep us at a good odd number, and just, I think it'd be the right thing for us to do. It gives us some depth from a succession planning perspective as well. I don't know that we need to do that in the next couple of weeks, but certainly this coming school year in the next few months might be a good time frame to get that out there and in place.
Okay. All right, so we are going to table the extensions until the July 12th meeting.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, like, I think my original term started in July. So technically, I think yours the same, Stacy. So we're not going to be out of, term length by then. It was just today would have been the day to get in front of it, but we can probably still be in front of it in July as well.
Okay. I would also remind the board to sign their annual forms that Kristen sent on June 24th, and they are due July 12th. If you've not done that, I don't have a record of who hasn't. She has that, but I just saw that and thought that we could use a reminder, mainly because I needed a reminder. So I'm like, oh, maybe somebody else needs a reminder too. So those are due July 12th. So by that board meeting. So make sure that you have sent those to Kristen by the next board meeting.
Our plan, I think, was, we talk about this later, but wanted to have that meeting on the 12th as much as we can in person, so that we can, all kind of sit together and talk about some of our strategy over the summer. So if we don't have them sent there, we can just print them and sign them when we are in person on the 12th as well.
Okay.
These are just our annual conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Disclaimers.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion on extension of the board tonight? We're okay to do that through the 12th, and we'll have a further discussion on the 12th on strategic succession planning. All right, so it looks like
Good.
we are gonna, is that good? Any other discussion before I move on? Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Patrice for the principal's report.
Okay, well, as you know, we closed, yay! So it's quite an exciting last few days, but it happened and we were able to close on June 7th. So I did send to you on the board report, just giving you the highlights of how those monies will be spent. Did anybody have any questions about that first graph that I gave you, the chart? Things that you've seen, you know, before with all the documents that we sent out. One of the biggest things that Dave and I are working hard on, and Melissa's been very helpful, and Philip has been sitting in on some of these meetings, is around the post-issuance compliance. And so we've already had several different meetings. And so you'll see where I said we're still waiting on our closing transcript, which will hold all the final documents. And that was told, Melissa, I think, said that hopefully it will be, no, take that back. She did send that yesterday. So I did get that yesterday. What we haven't gotten was the thumb drive. Because, you know, my first question is, this is a lot of documents. What's the best way to house them? So we are going to be sent a thumb drive for all those documents. So we'll want to talk about, you know, where that thumb drive resides. We also are working on some of we met with Melissa and Philip, Dave and I, and Melissa just kind of went through some of the documents that we need to really keep track of. There is going to be different things that we have to complete through the continuing disclosure agreements that we signed off on. There's an organization, digital assurance certification, they're called DAC. And we are going to use their for client services. Mary Wyatt, we met with her actually today. And she will basically just be giving us a reminder. It's kind of an interesting story because it turns out her grandchildren are students at our school. So that was kind of interesting.
Who is she?
Her name is Mary Wyatt.
Who does she work for?
She works for DAC, Digital Assurance Certification.
Okay.
So you'll see.
She sent me an email with something today.
Okay, she might have, because she's going to be the person that is going to be nudging us to remind us of the various reports that we have to submit. We submit most of the reports, not all the reports, but most of the reports get submitted to her, and then she uploads them into a portal called Emma. So there is a report, there is a portal. I can't remember quite the acronym. Kevin probably knows it off the top of his head, but it's basically a clearinghouse for municipal bonds. Correct, Kevin?
It is. It's a website that the MSRB, the Municipal Securities Regulatory Board, puts out. You can all go look at it. There's all kinds of exciting stuff that gets put up there by our dissemination agent. So it's absolutely the right thing to hire a third party to do that, because we don't want to be the ones. I mean, there's no question that Patrice is making the right move hiring these guys to help with that.
Thank you. And what's good news is that here we already have a connection with her, but everyone we have been speaking to, from Mary White and through some other people too, everyone's been very supportive. I think that they recognize that most of the people, that organizations that they work with, are not necessarily familiar with the language of the post-compliance. And so, and as you probably figure, we ask a lot of questions. Dave and Philip and I are good about doing that to make sure that we understand what we need to do. We also have a tax agreement, the borrower's tax certificate and agreement, and that will be something that Arnold Law Firm will help us with. But if they don't have that answer, they'll reach out to BMO or our trustee or Integrity for tax questions. Our trustee that holds the money right now is UMB, and we met with Patrick Teague with that organization just to learn how to the different the portal that they also house. and different documents that we have to upload to that. That is also the organization trustee, obviously, is one where we send various invoices we have during the project. So when we talk about the project is actually the construction that is taking place right now. So while we have the construction going on, there will be more reason for us to be involved with the trustee, and there's more reason for us to be involved with the tax agreement, which is the second group that we talked about. And we also hired a third party, Integrity, that will be helping us with the compliance that we have to complete around IRS requirements regarding the use of funds that may or may not be providing us any kind of profit. And that profit, basically, the way that I think about this, and Kevin, I know you're probably going to say it differently. The way I think about it is we just have to remain net zero in terms of the interest rate that we got the bond at, and any kind of money that we would earn if it's sitting in some kind of security. Is that the best way, Kevin, to say it, or would you say it differently?
Yeah, so while we're waiting to spend the money, we're not allowed to make money with those invested funds. So there's arbitrage rules that limit how much money we're allowed to make. That's pretty much it. And then all the bond proceeds have to be spent on, the governmental purposes of our project. So I think you said it about right, Patrice.
Okay. And basically, these are, that's another agency, Integrity, that basically will manage that for us when it comes down to having to do any IRS reporting, which will usually happen just annually. They'll reach out to us and they will do the work, and they also will have access to our portal that's at UMB to be able to look at all the documents that they need to look at to make sure that we are in line with the IRS requirements. Any questions about any of that before I go forward?
I would just ask, I know there's probably a lot going on in terms of identifying all these steps of things that we need to do and be in compliance. I think it'd be good to come back to the board maybe in August. I don't know the right time frame, that we can walk through all the things that we've got to do. And I'd like for you guys to have some sort of, your operational plan of who's responsible for those. I mean, these are things that are going to have to be done over the next 30 years, right? So I'd like for us to have a fairly detailed approach to how we're going to handle these, so that when you're not here and Kathy's not here and all, over the next ever many number of years, that is kind of laid out and can be revised and updated. And we know who's responsible and what the time frames are for those to get done each year, so that we stay compliant. I'd appreciate you guys if you could do that.
Yeah, so no, you read our minds. So that's one of the things that when we met with Melissa, we talked a lot about, because I jokingly told her that a hierarchy of folders would have been also important for them to provide to us, because there are so many different documents and we want to keep track of it. So she is also sending us something, Brett, along that same line around a spreadsheet, which will give us guidance around the things that need to be handled and when they have to be handled. Today, when we met with Mary Wyatt, she also sent a spreadsheet around that reporting. So we're compiling all this information. I actually also have a Word document I've shared with Philip and David and Dave and Kathy, where we're just literally dumping all this information in a somewhat organized Word document, so that we can then, after we meet with all these people, kind of peel back and go, okay, which is probably going to turn out to be a spreadsheet as well. Just what are the steps that we have to comply with, and when we do it, and who is going to be doing that, and how it's going to be done, etc.
Okay.
So with that, work has begun in earnest on the renovation for the high school. They've gotten through, all the walls are complete. They are finishing and completing with most of the painting. They are working on finalizing some plans for the flooring, which we're excited about. So And they've got to finalize some work on the sod and the landscape. So we're moving along pretty well with that regard. They also have started work on our property, at IMO property in terms of the drainage. So they have a lot going on our property as well.
So, and Patrice, I know I'm a little bit out of the loop on the construction plans without being in the weekly meetings for a bit. What's the current timeline and plan for things? What scope is going to be done now before the start of school? And what are the things that are going to remind me? What are the things that are going to have to follow on after the start of school?
So right now, as far as the high school, we are in good stead. I think the only thing that we may have to play around with is the flooring. There may be some, negotiations with that, but I'm not worried about the high school opening up, because we really don't have anything electrical or anything plumbing that's really going to be hanging us up. The drive line, there has been some emails that have gone back and forth with getting some final things on the Fuller's Cross property. We met with the city of Ocoee last week or the week before in a pre-construction meeting. But then they kind of turned around and wanted some other document, which was strange because it was a pre-construction meeting. And so everything should have been settled. So there's a few hitches there. But again, we're not really that worried because the drive line doesn't prevent us from being able to open up the IMO campus. But we're still hoping that the drive line will be complete before we open.
They haven't started clearing any of the property yet, have they?
They've started the asbestos. They've removed the asbestos of those buildings, but I don't think they've started demolishing them yet. I don't know, Dave, do you know? I haven't heard or seen that. I just know that I saw an email that they had removed the asbestos.
Are they going to clear the whole property as part of this?
I think that they are trying to hold some trees because, Ocoee is good about, like, if you take a tree down, then you got to plant some trees,
We're going to clear everything else that's kind of all the overgrowth and all of that, right?
Oh, yeah, because it's going to be a soccer field.
The whole thing?
Well, most of it is going to be a soccer field, yeah.
There's not too much space left.
Okay.
So the hang up with the soccer field has to do with the irrigation and lighting and electricity. So we're going to have to get creative with that. What were you going to say, Dave?
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, no, all they've done is the asbestos at the moment.
So no hangups in terms of opening dates, but I know we had a lot of conversations with them about flooring at the high school and maybe having to do that over Christmas or some other time. Like, are they doing some flooring now?
So what we came up with is, you're right, because sorry, I didn't clue you in on that. We came up with a solution whereby, because of the type of flooring we're going to use, it actually will adhere to the present flooring, right, that we have right now. They have to sand the floor and then they could adhere the new flooring to it. So that is going to save them a good 6 or 7 days of labor. And so because of that, they've gotten a new estimate time-wise that they can get one floor done. They feel confident they can get one floor done in a week's time. So now we're hoping that we'll get the flooring done. But the problem has been, like a lot of the subcontractors right now, is that they are really slammed and they're booked. And so we had a couple emails go back and forth the last couple of days because we've been trying to get them to confirm when they'll be able to do the work. The other thing with it, I will tell you, Brett, probably is a little bit more annoying to me, because I do feel pretty confident that everything is going on with the high school pretty smoothly. Stacy, I think you probably would agree, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think things are moving on. They're like definitely checking the list every week to make sure that, we're staying on to at least timeline forward progress. I think just getting it scheduled is going to be the key.
And we've gotten the furniture ordered. We're, still working on a few things with some furniture, but the biggest concern I have right now is the modular company. The modular company is really, and again, they are complaining of the same thing that you can't, help what you do here, on the news all the time. They are complaining about not having the workforce that they need to take out the modulars. So that is holding up the work that we need to complete with the basketball court and the additional drainage on that side of the property. So I will say, Dave, just to bother you one more time, have they committed? Because they were supposed to start, I thought, this week. And then I think I saw something that they are going to start the week of July 4th.
Yeah, the latest is July the 5th, Tuesday the 5th.
Okay.
I'll believe it when I see the trucks in the yard.
I know. So that out of everybody, I think that they have been the ones that have not, have been really behind the 8 ball and what they've promised. But again, nothing that's going to hold us up from actually opening. But certainly we would love to open with that beautiful basketball court and the soccer field. And, so it's going to be there. It just may not be there when we want it to be.
On the high school side, and I apologize if you sent out some of these details to us and I just missed them. Are we taking out walls in some of those spaces? Like how comprehensive are we going in there? We're all in with lots of stuff going, right? I realize I've been so focused on bond. I'm like, I haven't actually.
I know. Yeah. So Philip, we have an incubator that's about 1,300 square feet. We have several rooms that have been combined. And then we have other spaces that are just single classrooms. So if you remind me, if you send me an email, either Jared or myself, we could send you the floor plans. We've sent them out before, but I'm happy to send them out. I think I sent them out to the board, but we can send them out to you so you can see it. It's exciting. In fact, you know what? I know, Philip, that day that we had the parents there, we actually put it on a Parent Square notice. So if you go into the Parent Square notice, you'll see a PDF where we put the floor plans so that parents could see which rooms are going to be opened up.
Oh, I may have seen that back then. Okay, nice.
Yeah, it's
Very nice.
exciting. It really is exciting.
And change of plumbing, which I think is more key.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Jared, you've been here for what, a month now?
Almost.
Maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah, almost a month.
They pulled you in the deep end on all this construction. And
Yeah,
whatnot?
I'm trying to get caught up to speed as much as I can. I've spent a couple afternoons at the new site, just kind of checking on the progress. It's been pretty steady. Every time I've gone in, I've seen new projects that have been completed, which is good. I've really been kind of trying to focus my attention now on filling our vacancies. So we have several vacancies, instructional vacancies, and then some support staff vacancies. So got, I think, 4 interviews scheduled for tomorrow. Trying to find someone to fill the front desk role. We have someone that's that we're thinking of that has some experience, but we wanted to give some other people some opportunities to interview for those positions as well. So it's been going okay. Still, that process can be difficult, especially in our case where we're asking whoever's coming on board to dive right into a Montessori training program in October. That's a big ask for a lot of people. So it's already scared off at least one really strong candidate. So, but I think we'll find the right people for those roles. So that's really what I've been focused on. That and really making sure that the building is furnished. So working with our vendors for furniture and making sure that that it makes sense, the prices that we're being given. Because it's it takes a lot. It takes a lot to furnish a new building. And we want to make sure that we're getting quality products and that we're not paying too much. So been kind of scrutinizing that a little bit. And spending some time working with Lachey to kind of just work through kind of our goals and vision for the year. I'm looking forward to the week after 4th of July week, meeting with some students and the teachers to kind of do some planning for next year with their input. So, and I've had some good conversations with a few of the teachers already, just about ideas for this coming school year and then even future school years too. So, so that's been really good. But right now my emphasis is on trying to get all those vacancies filled, or as many of them as possible filled before the start of school. Having a full staff is really important, and it helps when all of those people can start day one, instead of maybe trickling in as the year's already started.
Well, I wanted to just say welcome aboard. I know,
thanks.
you kind of jumped right into the mix, as soon as the school year got over. So welcome. We're happy to have you here. Glad to hear you've got your your hands full. That's great. I know you're going to have a lot going on, but just wanted to give you a minute to let us know how you're doing and just welcome you. Glad you're here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way I operate. Dive in feet first, and try to get as familiar with as much as possible, as quickly as possible, so that I can contribute and share my my thoughts and my experience, my expertise. So, in my mind, it's been going a little bit slower than maybe I even had an expectation for myself, but I know that that pace has been good because I don't feel overwhelmed just yet.
Cool.
Oh, no. then
He'll
maybe-
come. We need to add more to his plate, Patrice.
Wait a minute. I take all that back. No, I am.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Jared.
Certainly.
All right.
What else,
So
Patrice?
the other thing for the night was to go over some of the votes that we have. And I don't know if we have to go through any details about them, but I'm happy to talk about them. The first one is the charter school safety assurances. It basically is a list of things that we will check off. And Brett, we started checking them off, but Jared wasn't here. And then so when we decided, well, we'll just wait and we'll get Brett's signature, then we'll check them all off. So we basically just have to initial all those things. It's the same thing we did last year, that we are agreeing that we will do and follow up. The other thing we have to do is vote on our mental health plan selection. It's not the actual mental health plan, it's a mental health plan selection that we will again have our own plan and opt out of the OCPS plan. So that's all that this document is asking for as a vote, just so you know, Stacy.
Yeah.
The other one is that's for both schools. So both of these documents are for both schools.
You guys will come back to us with that mental health plan once that's there, and then we'll go over that and vote. I think we vote on that.
They're putting it on a new portal and a new template this year. So we haven't even gotten the template yet, but they're hopeful that most of the things that we've already completed are going to be easily just copied and pasted. That's what we've been told, and that's what the district, I think, is hoping for, because nobody's gotten it yet. So then the other thing is that just to show our designation that we will have a SRO at both schools. Both of them are budgeted, and that is something that we will need to have you vote on, that yes, we are agreeing that we are going to have the city of Ocoee provide SROs for both schools. We've been in conversations with them. I think that they're still trying to figure out who it is that's going to fill the position. There was talk about Jason, but I think somebody else, some of you may remember Jason, who was with us before Loretta, but I think he's going to be targeted somewhere else. The other thing that we
Is
always—
Loretta going to stay at the campus?
Yeah,
today?
yeah.
Okay,
Kathy will kill me if I pull her over to the high school. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Understandably, I get it.
So then the other thing is we vote on is that as a charter school that we do follow Orange County Public Schools zero tolerance policies and agreements with law enforcement. So again, this is simply a form that you vote on, and that we say that we will, instead of developing our own, we just follow OCPS's policy. We also then sign off on our annual active assailant response plan. Again, all these are selection, basically, that we are showing what we are selecting. So with these, again, now I'm just going to look through. So you have the safety assurances, which goes through everything that we agree by state statute that we have to do.
Did you send me, were these attached to the board report?
Yes.
Okay. I
And
just had a
then-
hard time getting in board docs tonight, so you didn't
Well,
send them.
I can send it to you. I'll send it to you separately right now.
If you can, send them to me real quick, and then I just didn't know if it was worth flashing them up on the screen unless all the other board members have access to them and have seen them. I'm the only one. I've seen these all before, but I just didn't have the recent copies of them.
There's no change to the documents from last year.
And I have no problem sharing my screen real quick and showing you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The board did, we got them in an email about a week
Mhm.
ago, and I don't think they've changed since then.
no. So,
Yeah, I'm just a slacker.
so this is the first one from, again, what I did is I sent you both documents, Brett, because we have to sign both of them. So the first document's for the high school. This is the assurance ones, and it just goes through everything that's in state statute. I appreciate the way OCPS has done this now, where they just said, hey, you're just, saying that you agree to make sure that you follow all the various things that we have to follow in state statute. So that's all this one is. It's just an assurances that we initial, and Jared will initial the high school, and then Kathy will initial for IMO. We have to list who our threat assessment team members are. And so those are also listed there. There's a place for Jared to sign, and there will be a place in for the governing board to print and sign. And it's the same document for IMO as it is for IMHS. That's for the assurances. Then the next one has to do with, again, these are all selection that we are the mental health plan selection. And since our mental health plan is for both schools, so we just simply put both of the names of schools on here. And then we have one that will be submitted for IMO, and then one that will be submitted for IMHS. And again, that is just a selection, not the actual plan. And then this is the one for Jared and for the board, for Brett to sign. The next one is the officer designation. Again, it's just simply telling OCPS that we are going to have an SRO. It's to be determined who the SRO name is for IMHS. And on IMO, we'll be able to list Loretta Moser right now. And we know, city could still change that, but we hope that they don't. We really appreciated Loretta over the years. We then go from that one to the zero tolerance policies and agreements. And this is just the one where we show that we will work with OCPS, zero tolerance policy and agreement, with law enforcement, and it can be found in the student code of conduct. And we do again for the high school as well as for IMO. And then the next thing is just again showing that we will select to follow OCPS's active assailant response plan and emergency procedures, which that is for all the drills that we conduct throughout the year. And just again showing that we will follow OCPS's. So we have to literally, the board has to have a vote, and we then just have to sign off with the board president saying that that's the vote. Any questions?
No. So I have them listed. We can go through one at a time and go ahead and just go through unless there's any other discussion.
All these are in one document? Is that what-
Yes, you just keep scrolling.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Sorry.
Good.
All right, so if we start at the top, the school safety assurances.
Mhm.
Anything that's changed there from last year,
No,
right? Okay. You guys have these in front of you, the review?
Mhm.
All right. Any questions on this, on the school safety assurances? All right. If no discussion, we can open the floor for a motion.
I'll move to approve the safety assurances as presented.
Okay, motion from Kevin with a second,
Second.
sir, and all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's a lot of work we just signed you up for.
Any opposed? AJ, you're good. And then see if you.
Yeah, aye.
He's
Yeah, I'm good.
second. Mhm.
All right, good.
I
Oh, yeah,
second
yeah,
that.
second. All right. All right, so that's one down. What's next?
Those CPS mental health plan selection as we are opting out to maintain our own plan.
Yeah, and this is what we've done for the last 2 school years.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on this?
No.
All right.
I'll
make
move
a-
to approve it as presented.
Thank you, Kevin. Second.
Second.
Thank you,
Thank you,
AJ.
AJ.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, motion carries. Go to the charter, the OCPS Charter Safe School Officer Designation Form. Again, we're selecting to have SROs at both campuses. And any questions, concerns on that? Okay, motion for that.
Make a motion to approve the Charter Safe School Officer designation form as presented.
Thank you, AJ. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you, Philip. All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. 2022-23 OCPS Charter School Zero Tolerance Policies and Agreements with Law Enforcement. This is that we will utilize and implement the OCPS Zero Tolerance Policies and Agreements with Law Enforcement. Patrice, why is there a note on this one that says August 30th board?
That's just because I was keeping track of when they were due. So Kathy and I, we got a big stack of these things and some of them are needed. We had to go through what needed board approval, when the dates were. So we decided we could do as much as we could, ahead of time.
Okay. All right, any questions, discussion on the zero tolerance policies and agreements with law enforcement?
No.
If not, I'll open the floor for a motion.
I'll move to approve it as presented.
Thank you, sir. Have a second.
Second.
Thank you,
Thank you.
AJ. All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. One more 2022-23 OCPS Charter School Annual Active Assailant Response Plan Selection Form. Again, we are selecting that the school will utilize the OCPS Active Assailant Response Plan and Emergency Procedures as outlined in the My EOP mobile application and online for employees. We are choosing not to develop and adopt our own plan.
I'll
Any
move to
questions?
approve the adoption of the OCPS plan.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a second.
Second.
Thank you, AJ. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? No, perfect.
Thank you for keeping it the same every single time. It's just a copy and paste for me then.
Is that it? All good? All right.
We're good.
Patrice, do you need me to sign all these tonight?
No, not tonight, but we'll need, I think the only thing we need, Kathy, if you remind me correctly, the mental health one is the one that's due next week, I believe.
Correct.
So that's the one that, we'll need back. But Brett, if you can get them to us this week, that'd be great.
Okay, I was gonna say, if not, just print them for me and I'll sign them on the 12th, but if you need them before then, I'll just figure out which pages to print. I don't like to print them all, and I just kill trees, so I
Gotcha.
usually just print the signature pages and send you guys the signature pages.
Well, and honestly, you can do it digitally too.
Digitally.
Oh, yeah, I can, this one I can probably just sign digitally.
Yeah.
Good.
Mhm.
All right, good, I'll do that.
Okay. And then the only other thing I had on this was just a reminder for our August voting that we will just really encouraging everybody to go to those polls. If you vote for nothing else in August, vote for the 1 mil local ad valorem, which is up for renewal.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Thank you, Patrice. Next up, we have our finance update from Philip. And this also includes a vote to approve the 2022-2023 school year budget.
Thank you, Stacy.
Mhm.
I'll give you guys a quick update on some of our year-to-date financials, and I'm actually going to turn it over to Dave for a high-level touching on the budget before we go into approval. So overall for the year, the story has stayed a lot like what we've heard, where bonds have obviously taken up a huge amount of time and effort with pulling everything together. Grants have been a large impact on our cash flow side of things, with running things through for having to purchase it, then submitting the request for reimbursement. Grant reimbursements have ran slower this year than we've experienced in the past, I imagine due to the volume of stuff that's going through them by not just us, but all the other schools that are out there as well. So they have allowed us with a nice amount of cash inflow related to them, but it's just been an aspect that's to be aware of from the finance side of things. Overall, another one that is different this year, we handled our payroll a little bit differently. So I'm comfortable sharing the surplus ratios that normally I don't really like sharing out of May's numbers, because I don't expect them to change much when we get there. You guys might remember that we accrued our payroll throughout the year, so it should stay a bit more stable as we actually finish out this year. IMO is currently running at between a 13 to 14% surplus. That's the number that's required at 3% by the state, and over 5% was a long-held board preferred variance. IMHS currently was at 2.4 at the end of May. We are going to double check some of our numbers to make sure that we can, or see what we can perhaps adjust a little bit to move the dollars that make up the difference between that is less than $10,000. So we're going to probably adjust some cost a little bit. So maybe they hit IMO versus IMHS, something in those areas. So to make sure that ratio stays over 3%. And with kind of the high level, as I always like to say, the year is wrapping up with not too many surprises, aside from all of the major things that are going on. But there's no little underlying things that are causing us large concern. To step over to kind of the budget side of things, I will, like I said, I'm actually going to pass to Dave, let him give the first shot. I will chime in if maybe there's some gaps and things that need covered, but I don't want to steal any of the thunder and have Dave be like, oh, I lost my first half of my page of notes. So take it away, Dave, unless you've changed your mind and want to tell me to go for it.
No, you steal it away, Philip.
Dave loves public speaking. Let's hear it.
Oh, I absolutely do. Been looking forward to this all year. So I sent you guys the annual budgets for CASA, IMO, and IMHS. So I don't know if you've got those on your screen or if you want me to share mine. But if you've got them in front of you, then I can just do a quick run through. If we start with CASA first. So there's an increase to the CASA tuition fee for this year, for going from 8,500 to 8,750. This is the first time in 2 years that we've done an increase. Hilda actually rung round some of the local schools, seeing how much they charge. We're definitely like pretty middle of the row. There's a few that are more, there's a few that are less, but like I said, we're pretty much in the middle. The student supply fee for 22-23, this was increased to $100 per student from 90. This is what we do every other year as in the past. So this is the year that it got changed. And basically the only other change to CASA this year is each employee's got a 2% COLA. That's pretty much the changes between CASA last year and CASA this year. If there's any questions.
What did we do for COLA last year?
2%, sir.
And it's the same this year?
At the moment, I'm sure Philip will touch more on this. We're actually waiting to get more details and directions around the TSIA, the Teacher Salary Increase Allocation Funds, because that's going to be 5 times what we had this year. This year we had 116,000 in IMO, and it's gone now for what high school was, but it's obviously, so that will be 600 and 580, almost 600,000 for IMO at least. High school is probably going to be around 125,000 next year. So we want to know what we can spend it on, how we can, like, exactly if it's just teachers or whatever staff, just get some more details before we commit to anything.
And to chime in a little on this one too, you guys might remember us talking about, hopefully you remember us talking about the TSIA basically every month from October through February. And every month it was we haven't gotten it yet, but we think we're going to get it soon. And then the next month it was, we haven't gotten it yet, but we think we're going to get it soon. So last year it was around 150,000 for the whole organization. So mid-year we were down $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, enough to be annoying, but not enough to cause heartburn or real challenges on it is also causing challenges with our grant revenue because the grants were also causing cash flow challenges. So this year, depending on the restrictions they put on that TSIA dollars, they dramatically increased. They've said 5-fold increase. So now we're looking at around $500,000 to $600,000 for our total organizational budget around that. And in some ways that could be restricted, which may then give justification for a higher COLA adjustment to keep up with inflation a bit more. Or perhaps it'll be earmarked for maybe adding more distribution or spread between teachers who used to make more or used to make less. This is that favorite thing that we always get to in June, where, weeks before we get to voting on our budget, something comes out of Tallahassee that says, oh, you have to do this. We have no details for you before you finalize your budget. So you still need to approve your budget, though, because that's due to us by the beginning of July. So this is one of those where it is actually, I think, the biggest uncertainty we have in our budget right now is we've kind of earmarked it so we have something that we know we can move forward with. But I expect we're going to need to have a conversation on TSIA again, probably multiple times in the next few months until we figure out where this actually lands.
And Philip, just so you know, I had told Philip and Dave that I was trying to reach out to the state because one of the reasons why our funds were held up for so long was because the OCPS had not finalized their bargaining with the teachers union. And so the state did not release the district money, and our money was tied into the district. So I did get an email back, and Dave, I forgot to tell you too, I did get an email back. I think you were copied on it though.
Yeah.
I did get an email back from the state, and it looks like it's going to be the same way this year. And so exactly feeding into what Philip said, it does mean that we do need to have some conversations and really follow up with where the district is with their bargaining unit, and if they finalized their salaries, because last year we went ahead and started paying the teachers with the TSIA money when we didn't have it. And so because it's going to be so much money this year, and we don't know what the restrictions are on how we spend it, it's going to be a bigger conversation about whether or not we can actually access it before we get it. Because obviously we can't, we can't be that
Yeah.
far behind in the revenue if we don't get it, you know, in time. So,
Some of our ideas that we've tossed around in the finance committee to share with the rest of you while we get this figured out, we kind of anticipate that what we'll do is end up doing something retroactive, where once these dollars finally do start coming in and we have clarity on what we can and can't do, then we will say, okay, we're maybe doing a larger increase to the teacher salaries, or maybe, you know, sometimes with this stuff, it ends up being you actually take stuff that you already were spending, but now it's earmarked differently, and so you adjust it. But those are the things that once we start getting that money, then we'll be able to start spending it. And so it may end up with a larger payout to the teachers with that, you know, pay adjustment, just to use the number. I don't want anyone to go and quote it, but I'll make the number big enough that hopefully people won't. Let's say that the COLA was 4 times what we projected. And so we would do it retroactive going back to July, and then make a one lump sum payment with then that payment going out monthly going forward with the incremental percentage increase. But it's as Patrice saying, they're still leaving it tied up. And I mean, Patrice, correct me if I'm wrong, Orange County's always been late in finalizing their details. Not always. There's been multiple years that Orange County has been late in finalizing their agreement with their teachers union.
A late breaking news. If there was a little thing flashing on there, late breaking news. I asked Leanna to check on this because I saw something real briefly this afternoon about CTA finalizing, but I told her, I said, verify that it wasn't for last year, because sometimes they're behind. They may have already finalized with their bargaining unit. She sent me something for 22, 23. So basically what we'll do, Dave, you and I can just make sure that we get that verified from the district. But that would be great news, because then the state won't hold up the district's plan either. But we haven't even gotten the money yet. You know, the biggest thing, Philip, we haven't even gotten the money yet. We haven't even gotten the outline of the plan. So that's the next step.
Yeah.
Is once the state gives us the plan, the district has to submit their plan. We have to submit our plan. But the most important thing that held up the money was the bargaining unit. And if they've already settled that, then that's a big roadblock that's out of the way.
They did last week. I remember seeing that, and I just double checked that CTA posted it. The Orange County classroom teachers posted it, that they've got the agreement, the tentative agreement is up. So.
Okay, cool.
Hopefully then that helps to resolve some of the timing issues we experienced last year, and we'll be able to get these details and at least finalize this conversation in July or August. To bring this back to budget at hand, what we've done, and I say we meaning Dave, basically, Dave, Patrice, and team, we've layered it into the budget, assuming the smaller amounts anticipate having to come back to this with a conversation. And the worst case scenario, we would have an additional board vote later for a revised budget. But more realistically, we would probably be able just to make those adjustments on the back end or as appropriate and layer them in. All right, back to you, Dave. Go ahead and continue with our other variations of the other organizations.
So moving now on to IMO. The FEFP revenue, this includes a 5% increase as per Richard Moreno when we were doing the bond calculations. The FEFP revenue also includes the TSIA at 5 times what was in this year's budget. Again, the student supply fee being increased to 100 from 90. The CASA lease payment is not included in the IMO revenue this year. That's under new accounting process as per the bond. So you won't see the CASA lease payment to IMO in the revenue and then going out in the bottom line. It's completely taken out this year. Again, each employee has been awarded a 2% COLA. Then moving down into the line items, instructional costs. These are higher due to more student services employees and tutoring costs. The tutoring costs is a large item that's going to be reimbursed via the ESSA grant. School admin costs, these are higher due to more employees. This year we had, although it was 1 dean and 1 AP, the dean actually come from instructional. So now we're going to 3 APs. So obviously that's, we're going from 1 to 3. And then we've also retaining the attendance clerk. Facility acquisition costs, these have been removed due to the portable classrooms being removed. Although I do say that tongue in cheek, hey, Miss Patrice. The fiscal costs, these are higher because I'm actually getting somebody to help me. Woo! Operations costs, these are higher due to no contribution from the high school as they're going to have their own campus next year. And that's basically the top level comments about IMO. Any questions? Okay. So into high school, pretty much the same. The FEFP revenue has got the 5% increase as per Richard. The FEFP revenue has got the TSIA at 5 times. The student supply fee up to 100 from 90. Each employee has been awarded a 2% COLA. You can see where I'm going with most of these, right? Instructional costs, these are higher due to more student services employees and tutoring costs, the same as IMO. Again, the tutoring costs, which will be reimbursed via the ESSA grant. School admin costs, these are higher due to more employees, obviously Jared coming in. Operations costs, these are higher because they've got their own campus. So whereas they were making a contribution to like the SRO, the electric, the internet, the telephone, now they've got their own. And again, this is just basically forecasted costs based on our campus. And finally, the IMHS doesn't contribute to the bond in 22-23. As the amount lower, the first initial year is lower, with CASA making a contribution and IMO, we felt that high school, to get them on their feet, they wouldn't make a contribution in 22-23. Overall, projections on the ratio report that I sent to you guys. Overall, 1.7 for the three entities. IMO is 1.6. CASA is 1.14. High school, I need Philip's help with that one because I couldn't get it to work because there's no debt service being repaid. But obviously, they've got a good net income and depreciation. And overall, where's my overall one?
Chime in on these ratios as well. Just a reminder for everyone, these are different than the ratios we usually talk about. These are a bond requirement ratios versus the state required ratios. So if you have in your mind that we state required 3%, and now we're talking 1.7, it's actually looking at it's a whole different ratio calculation that is in our bond governance documents of what we have to have that relates more to our current our revenue and current cash flow, or what is more of a operational cash flow versus a debt service. Sorry, Dave, back to you. I just wanted to clarify that so no one got confused on those numbers.
No, that's okay. Overall, the school is looking, if you add all three companies for this year, we were at 14.3. Next year, we're looking to go to 18.2. Obviously, you can see on the overall one that the surplus is quite healthy, but we're not sure exactly what we're going to do, as Philip's mentioned about the TSIA. I'm also waiting to hear back from Patrick at UMB about the bond payments for this year, and so I've just gone with a worst case scenario of what we have to pay for debt service. Talking to him this morning at quite a length, it's looking to be less than what I've got in here for IMO and obviously then the total, which makes it a lot better. But at least I've gone with worst case scenario for you guys. And that's pretty much it on my side. And if you've got any questions.
A question.
Yeah.
Dave, thank you as always for the details on this. So if I'm looking at the total budget as a whole, right, for all three schools.
Yeah.
Where's that, that revenue increase of from 9 million to 10.9? Where does that huge increase come from?
That's coming in the 5% FEFP revenue, and then the TSI increase as well.
Got it. So you already have that baked in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Dave, do you have it handy? I don't have it in front of me. We also have a decent student increase as well, right? Like another 70 or 80 students more? Am I thinking about that right?
This year, high school is forecasted at 130, and it's moving to 179. IMO is staying again at 717, and CASA will remain at 83.
But that's a couple 100,000 additional as well, AJ.
Yeah.
For
Perfect.
the increase in account.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to run through, I don't think I heard Dave give the overall numbers. I like to just pause and look at them overall, right? You know, we're looking at it going from about 9 million in revenue for the whole organization last year to about 10 million in revenue. I'm sorry, this is for about 10.9 million, so just shy of 11 million in revenue for the whole organization next year. The majority of the cost, 5.8 million, goes to instructional, with the school administration taking the next largest, actually debt service and school administration are both about 1.3 million. Those three pieces alone account for the vast majority of school operations, which would be what we would expect, right? The basic core coverage of the facilities, and then also for another large portion of it going to our staffing side. Something I wanted to highlight a little bit, we are, as Dave mentioned, we're working through the finals with the bond and anticipating it actually being a little lower than what we have in this budget, but there was some of the back and forth of how, you know, since we have Kevin on the board, I can't say legal speak too much with too much of a sneer, but it's the technicals in the document where it's this payment is due here, and then on some other page it's and then this pool will be contributing those payments, but those payments are still. So we're finalizing all of those. This goes to also what Patrice had touched on, you know, working through all of the specifics of the bond programs. So some of that potentially can come in to impact a little bit what we have in the budget. We're pretty sure we've got, as Dave said, worst case scenario, we think it'll actually be a little bit better, but getting those things all lined up as well. Something else I did want to call out number-wise, if you take it to the bottom, you'll see that we're projecting a current year net surplus of $700,000, up substantially from the $250,000 in current year or $85,000 in prior year. And I think most of you have been around long enough to remember that we usually have ran our current year surplus quite close to zero. The one factor, a big factor that's coming into play is we are, as part of our bond program, we're required to have higher cash on hand, basically, more days of cash on hand than what we have historically operated with. Also good fiscal governance to allow ourselves a little bit more of a cushion. While we were growing, it was much harder to achieve. So with our capitalized interest that we borrowed on this bond, we will be using this year and next year for IMO will be the years that we should be ramping up that cash on hand. So we'll run larger surpluses than we're used to. So those dollars can then essentially sit around as the pool of cash that we have. That's the theory of how it's all planned on. So when you see these numbers, it'll be like, oh, we've got gobs of dollars to spend. Some of it needs to go sit somewhere. Of course, Dave and Patrice get to be involved in the weeds of the challenges of making all of that work as the theory fits. But that's what we're kind of seeing with how these numbers look a little bit different than what we're quite used to.
Hey, Philip. So we used to have to hold a percentage that Building Hope gave us, that we had to stay under that percent on cash on hand. And now since we're bonding out, we need to have the surplus. So that's really the big difference that we're seeing. Does that make sense? Is that what you're saying?
The surplus, so Building Hope had a ratio that we had to use.
Yeah.
And that one actually had to do with our operating cash flow as relevant to essentially our rent or our debt service cash requirement. So that was where we did things like capitalize more of our purchases. So we would have expenses that weren't necessarily cash expenses, which gave us a little bit more breathing room inside of there. Gotcha. You know, it's looking at are you using all of your cash to keep yourself going, or are you do you have a little bit of wiggle room inside of there, right? That ratio does still apply. It's actually pretty similar to what Building Hope had already had us doing. Although then there's additional ratios that come in, and this is that part where we're getting all those things lined up and all those pieces. You know, with I think I got 700 emails related to our bond conversation. You know, and lots of them are yep, and we agree and sounds good, but there's a lot of stuff in there. So as Patrice mentioned, bringing on Mary Wyatt with Jack, these are the groups to help us make sure that what is the specific ratio or how does it factor in. We don't really have concerns on our abilities to meet them, but it's a matter, because we've had the conversations over the last several months, but it's a matter of making sure that we've lined everything up so we do meet them and don't run into being out of compliance at some point in the future.
Okay, so we still have a ratio to meet, but it's just a little bit different based on what the new metrics are that the bond has given us.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
still a ratio to me. And Patrice, I remember, and do you remember, we don't have clarity. I thought we landed somewhere on there's like a 45 days cash on hand that at some point, but even did we land on that, or did that not end up with the final documents, or?
Good question. I want to say that I think it did land on the 45 days. Am I correct, Dave? And I can't remember if it ramps up. For some reason, I'm wondering and feeling like maybe it ramps up after a few years. But
I think go ahead, Dave. Or
Sorry,
Patrice.
I believe at the end of June, it has to be 30 days and then June 23 onwards, 45 days. So I mean, we're above 45 days at the moment. So as long as we do build this surplus, then we shouldn't have anything to worry about going forward.
and that's
And
what
this
was
goes
kind
to
of good
you.
about, even though we, even though the interest rate wasn't what we wanted, the cash on hand ended up being better, because at one point in time they were talking about 60 days. So.
Yeah. And I think our official meeting notes on this one go to more say we are aware of cash on hand requirements that we're not concerned with our ability to meet, but that we're finalizing the specifics to make sure we meet them all. But you can see Dave, Patrice, and I are all on I think it was 45. I'm not completely sure. There might have been some additional. We heard so much through cash on hand was a really intriguing one of how much they tossed back and forth in their conversations of. Not surprisingly, the investors like us to have more cash on hand, so they're more comfortable investing in the school. So what they wrote into the bond parameters, they were really trying to gauge how much of that they needed to. Do they need or say we would have 90 days cash on hand 5 years out, or do they think they could get by with a smaller amount? So sometimes they push those numbers pretty high for us in these theoretical or still kind of deep discussions of it. So that's why Dave, Patrice, and I all give that. Where did we actually land? And why we're bringing in all these additional business partners to help us make sure that we do have those final numbers correct. Probably way more than you wanted, Stacy. And hopefully interesting. And I'm sorry.
No, you cleared it up for me, so that's what I'm only minorly confused now.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Do you want any more details? We've kept this pretty high level. I think that over the last several years, it's kind of where we've gone as the board. If any of you are interested in going deeper into the details, Dave and I are happy to schedule a finance committee special session and look at things in more detail. But at the same time, Dave and Patrice and team really manage the specifics on a lot of this and do a great job.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you both.
Appreciate it. Good job.
All right, we will be moving into our PTO update. Do we have somebody from
Well,
PTO that wants?
we gotta have the vote.
Oh, geez, Louise. Yes, thank you. It's even highlighted on my paper, Patrice, and I'm still like just breezing right through it. All right.
So, I don't know if you want me to. I don't remember exactly how we've worded it in the past. I present it to you. I don't know if you want me to do the first motion or if you want to pick it up. I leave that to you, Stacy and Brett, for how you want it.
I think you could make a motion and that would be lovely.
I will
Sure.
motion to approve the budget as presented to the board.
All right, so yeah, let's call that the 2022-23 school year budget.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably a good point. And also to call out that it's both for IMO and IMHS, the collective organization.
And CASA.
Sounds good. All right, so I've got a motion from Philip on the floor. Any discussion, questions on the budget? Good. Second,
Second.
AJ with a second. All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Budget approved.
Thank you again, David
Good
and
job.
Philip. I know this is a lot of work, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so now we can move on to a PTO update. Do we have somebody? I don't see Marnie, but do we have somebody here to represent PTO today?
We can regroup with Marnie next month.
Okay. No problem. Didn't know if I just missed somebody in the chat box. All right. Do we have any committee updates that need to be shared out? I reminded you about the forms. That was the only thing I had on my list. Any additional committee updates?
Nope.
Okay. All right, then we will move on to the president's update.
Yeah, I don't have any specific things to discuss. I mean, Patrice and her team have kind of taken most of the topics we were covering here in terms of building and bonding and all that, and rolled that into the principal's report at this point. So other than just looking forward to some discussion in our board retreat next month, and certainly looking forward to getting out to celebrate a little bit of our success that we've had with some folks soon. So other than that, that's all I got.
Okay.
Any other orders of business tonight? All right, well, we will call the meeting adjourned at 7:53.
Okay, and then Brett and Kathy, if you can just hang on for just a little bit after. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you all.
Okay,
Bye.
guys, thank you.